Alright guys, so here are your audio examples for your hearing the differences between these chords listening sheet. We're going to go through 1 chord, we're going to go through 4 chords, we're going to go through 5 chords, and we're really going to get our ears deeply acquainted with each one of them. Alright, so we're starting off with the 1 chord, of course, because it's the most important of the chords. And the 1 chord gets its name because its root is do, which is the first note of our scale. So, because of that, it is labeled as the 1 chord. Within a chord, we generally have a root, a third, and a fifth. And in this chord, the root is do. You skip re to get to the third, which is the third note of the scale, mi. Skip fa, so on the fifth. So that's why they have those names. And here's what it sounds like. You're familiar with this one hopefully by now. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Now you can take these notes and put them in different orders, and they will still be the root, the third, and the fifth, even if the root isn't on the bottom. For example, like this. Mi, so, do, so, mi. It's still a 1 chord, even though it's in a different order. Generally speaking, we're going to be keeping our 1 chords in what's called root position with the root on the bottom. So that's our 1 chord one more time. Do, mi, so, mi, do. That's the note separately. Generally with chords, we're going to hear them all together at the same time, like when we're playing them on guitar, so it ends up sounding like that. Alright, so if this note is our do, to find our root of so, we have to walk up the scale to so to get there. Do, re, mi, fa, so. So now I settled in on so right here. I'm building my chord up, I skip over la and get to ti, skip do and go to re, so, ti, re, ti, so. Those are the notes in my 5 chord. Once again, that's so, ti, re, ti, so. Now normally, when we're singing this chord in class, we're using another one of those inversions I kind of showed you earlier. If you take the root and move it so that now the third is the note on the bottom, that's called first inversion. And that's just a fun fact for you guys. So this is a first inversion 5 chord, which ends up sounding like this. Ti, re, sol, re, ti. We can't know for sure that it's a 5 chord until we've heard that 1 chord. So here's our 1 chord, and we go away into our 5 chord. Ti, re, sol, re, ti. So there you go. There is our 5 chord. Alright, and so now we've arrived at the 4 chord. The 4 chord is built off of fa. You know, we know that because do's 1, 2's re, 3's mi, that leaves 4 for fa. And again, we build our chord up by having that root, third, and fifth. Fa, la, do, la, fa. And that's how they sound together. Now, normally when we're doing this chord, in our singing progression, you know, this is one that some people have nicknamed the falafel chord because you have that fa and la right there. Now normally we do this in what's called second inversion. So we take not just the root and move it up, but we also take the third and kind of slide it up there as well. So we end up with the fifth as the bass note, the bottom note. Do, fa, la, fa, do. And so that's why we end up having that sound for it. It's still a 4 chord. You know, we just took the notes of it and put it in a different position. Fa's still the root. It's just not the lowest note, so it's not the bass note. Bass note just means the lowest note. It doesn't tell us anything about the note's job in the chord. Fa's still the root, la's still the third, do's still the fifth. Alright, so now we've arrived at chord progressions. And chord progressions are just the order of chords in music. So the order the chords move in are the progressions. There are some that have more popularity than others, some that pop up a whole bunch, other orders that don't pop up as often. Right now, we're just going to be focusing on 2-chord progressions. I'm going to play each of these examples for you, and then I'm going to ask you to fill them out on your sheet in that 1 to 5 area. Just put the letter that matches up with the chord progression here. So first, here is the one that we have marked A. This is a 1-5 chord progression. I will play the original chord as a block chord all at once. Then I'll play one note at a time with the root and the bass. Then I'll switch to the next chord. Then I'll come back to the second chord. So each of these will end up having 3 chords, even though there's only 2 listed. I'll go through the first chord, to the second chord, and then back to the first chord. So that was A, our 1-5. 1, 5, and then back to 1. Here is this B progression, 1 to 4. Alright, here is the 4 chord. And then we go back to that 1 chord. Alright, and now here is C, our 4 and 5 chord progression. One of the easier ways to spot that one is it's the one that sounds the least complete. So at the end of it, it just doesn't feel like it's over, and that's because it didn't arrive back at a 1 chord. And until we get back to a 1 chord, generally chord progressions don't feel over. Alright, so here we go. Here is example number 1. Might not be an exact match, as in it's not the exact same order of the notes that I played, but it still has all the notes of one of these chords, all of the notes of the other, and then it goes back to the other chord again. So here it is for you one more time. This is the first blank on your sheet. So that was number 1. Here is number 2. So this is chord number 2, and I will even give you a 2 up here so that you know that. Here we go. One more time, that's Alright, here is your third example. Now, I'm not necessarily going to stay in the same key as I was before, so you'll still hear the same pattern, but it's not necessarily going to be in the same key. Here is example 4. One more time for number 4. And your last example before the large scale chord progression. Here we go. Number 5. One more time, that's you may re-listen to these as many times as you like. Just make sure that you're certain on your answers. Once again, in those blanks, you don't have to write everything that is written down right in this area. You can just put A, B, or C, whichever one matches what you heard. Alright, now the full chord progression. Very rare that chord progressions are so isolated as what you just did. Usually they're put together in longer chunks. So, in your notability, please make sure that you mark the proper chord for each measure. Remember, you can repeat chords over different measures. You can either do that by leaving it blank over the top or by repeating that same Roman numeral. You only have to write Roman numerals where the chords change. Alright, so here we go. I will play through this chord progression 3 times. 1 time with some extra dialed up fancy stuff, and then 2 times bare bones, just the chords. So, here we go. Here is this chord progression. Alright, and here it is without the fancy stuff. One more time without the fancy stuff.